Okay, so what we want to do now is we want to look at some examples of using the midpoint formula. Now, the midpoint formula is kind of a funny formula because it looks really, really complicated. Okay, our midpoint formula, it says that m equals x sub 1 plus x sub 2 over 2, comma, y sub 1 plus y sub 2 over 2. Okay? It looks really complicated. So let's say with our first example, we want to find the midpoint P between the points -1, -1 comma 2, and 3 comma -6. Okay? So the first thing that I want to point out is we need to make sure that we know what our x1 and our x2 is. So one of the things that I like to do is I like to say that this is p sub 1 and this is p sub 2. Okay? So point 1 and point 2. Because that means that both of these are going to be sub 1 and both of these are going to be sub 2. Okay? So this is, you may remember that I've said this before, 90% of being good at math is keeping yourself organized, okay? So here's x sub 1 and y sub 1, and here's x sub 2 and y sub 2. So if I remind myself of that fact, then I'm going to be able to stay organized. And then, look, I can just plug this stuff into here, and I can get my midpoint. We say it's a formula, but you're going to end up with an xy coordinate, just like what this looks like and what this looks like, okay? But here's the thing. The fact of the matter is, it's really what you're doing is taking the average of your two x values and the average of your two y values. Take a look. When you find the average of two numbers, you add them together and you divide by 2. I've added these two numbers and I divide by 2. I've added these two numbers and I divide by 2. So you don't even have to memorize the midpoint formula. Just remember that you're taking the average of your two coordinates. Okay? So let's go ahead and do that. Let's go ahead and do that. I'm going to do it in blue. And my midpoint in this case, big P, is going to be -1 plus 3 over 2, comma, 2 plus -6 over 2. So -1 plus 3 is equal to, looks like 3 minus 1 is 2, so that's going to be 2 over 2. And 2 plus -6 is going to be -4. -4 over 2. So I end up with the answer 1, comma, -2. And that is my answer for my first one. P equals 1, comma, -2.
Can you call me like from a landline?
Okay, so let's take a look at number 2 and number 3. Okay, example 2 is we're trying to find the midpoint between the points 6.4 comma 3 and -10.7 comma 4. Ooh, decimals. So my midpoint, I think we're calling it P again, so let's go ahead and call that big P. Okay, is going to be, here's x1, here's x2. 6.4 plus -10.7 over 2, comma, 3 plus 4 over 2. Okay? 6.4 plus -10.7. What I'm going to do is I'm going to do 10.7 minus 6.4 because they're signed differently. This is going to be 3. There's going to be a point here, and this is going to be 4. But it's going to be -4.3 because even though I did this minus this, -10.7 is bigger. The 10.7 the absolute value is bigger than 6.4. So I'm going to give it the sign of the number with the greater absolute value. So that's -4.3 over 2, comma, 7 over 2. Okay, -4.3 divided by 2. Let's see what that is. Well, we know it's going to be negative. 4 divided by 2 is 2. 2 minus 2 times 2 is 4. Okay, so then we're going to be 0. This is going to be a point. This is going to be a point. I shouldn't have put that negative there yet. And then 2 goes into 3 one time. 1 times 2 is 2. Oh, and I got to do 2, 1, and then bring this down. So it's going to be 2.15. So negative 2.15, negative 2.15, comma 3.5. Okay? So that's my answer for that. Don't be afraid of the fact that there's a decimal. Okay, now, here we have a tricky one. We're going to have, okay, we have this thing where one of our endpoints is at 2, comma 2, and the midpoint is at 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, comma 6. Okay? And it's saying, what is the other midpoint? So we know that since it's a midpoint, it's about exactly halfway between this. So our point exactly halfway between this right here and this going to the other midpoint. Okay? So whatever the distance of this is going to be, it's going to be the same distance to go up here. Okay? So we've got to figure out, we're given an endpoint and a midpoint, and we want to find the other endpoint. So what we're going to do is, we know that our midpoint is going to be, x1 minus x2 over 2, comma, y1, plus y2 over 2. Okay? And we know that one of our endpoints, so our x1 is equal to 2, and our y1 is equal to 2, because one of our points, our endpoint is 2, comma 2, and our midpoint is 12, comma 6. So, what this means is that, since the midpoint, we know that the midpoint is 12, comma 6, that means that this expression right here is going to be equal to 12, and this expression right here is going to be equal to 6, right? So I've got my x1, I've got my y1, and it's going to go like this. X1 is 2, so 2 plus x sub 2 over 2 equals 12. And then y1 is 2. 2 plus y sub 2 over 2 equals 6. And then I just solve these separately, right? So I've got to multiply both sides by 2, and I'm going to get that 2 plus x sub 2 equals 24. Then I'm going to subtract 2 from both sides, and I'm going to get that x sub 2 equals 22. For this one, I'm going to multiply both sides by 2, because that's going to cancel these out. And I'm going to get that 2 plus y sub 2 equals 12. Then I'm going to subtract 2 from both sides, and I'm going to get that y sub 2 equals 10. So my answer is that my other point is going to be 22, comma 10. Okay? And that makes sense, because 6 is halfway between 2 and 10, and 12 is halfway between 2 and 22. 22 minus 12 is 10, 12 minus 2 is 10. 10 minus 6 is 4, 6 minus 2 is 4. That's how you know that this midpoint is correct, or rather endpoint.